here. So, today we're back playing around with Horde Plunderer, 3 power in Primal for a 1/4 warrior with Berserk, and most importantly, your weapon Spellcraft for free. So our last video we had a lot of fun playing around with a Fire Justice Primal Spellcraft list, and then Tome of Repetition was spoiled and released in the Into Shadow adventure. So, Tome of Repetition, 2 power in time, give you unit +1/+2, you can spellcraft an additional time, and for spellcraft 2, you play a secret pages. This release of this card got me thinking about what Tome might offer in our spellcraft list instead of another faction. And then I remembered Sword of Unity existed, which is probably, not even probably, Sword of Unity is the best spellcraft card. Sword of Unity is a very powerful card. So we chucked out the fire, brought in time, and this is where we ended up with. This list is taking a very different deck building approach from our last list. So while our fire version of this list was relying on powerful 2-card combos, such as Acquisitive Crow with Copper Hole Braces, so Acquisitive Crow, a 3-mana flyer with with Berserk, and Copper Hole Braces, a powerful legendary weapon that gives +4 power to your unit, and when this unit deals damage to a player, you get to play a depleted Justice Sigil from your deck. Those 2 cards very powerful together. This list, rather, we are trying out a powerful core and then adding some spice to that deck. So here our core is a Combre Alessi list, which we've then tilted with the addition of Primal into a Spellcraft list. So the Alessi core has Alessi Combre Archmage herself, 1 power 1/1, when you play a spell she gets +1/+1, and you gain 1 armor. Alessi, just a very powerful card in general, and a lot of fun to play with. We're also running Awakened Student, very efficient beta in these kinds of lists. Rilgon's Disciple, 2 power 2/3, whenever you play a spell he gets double damage until end of turn. And Coastal Battle Mage, Aegis, 3 power 3/3, when you play a spell he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So those of you familiar with Magic would recognize this as Prowess. And then Finest Hour kind of topping out our traditional Alessi package as very powerful combat trick, finisher, removal. The Spellcraft package, we're bringing over a lot from our last list, but playing around with some new stuff as well. So obviously starting off with Horde Plunderer, the reason we are here. I've had a lot of fun playing with this card. I hope to play with a lot more of her. When Into Shadow was released, I initially shelved an earlier version of this list. What I've learnt too presumptuously, of the fear that Vara was just going to make Aegis not worth playing at all. A few weeks have passed, and my own experience and seeing what other people are playing with, that's not really the case at all. Vara is a very powerful card, but there's a lot of ways you can interact with her and deal with her, even if you are relying on the power of Aegis in your list. Speaking of which, our rest of our Spellcraft package very much relies on Aegis creatures. So we're running 4 Sheriff Marley, so 4/4 with Aegis. Once per turn, you can pay 3 to draw a 1/1 Deputy with Aegis, very powerful power sink in the late game, and she has Tribute of Silence an enemy unit. This doesn't come up very often, but when you have the chance to trigger it, quite powerful indeed. We're also playing the new Into Shadow card, Zulta Convoy. Zulta Convoy, having a lot of fun with, and in brewing and playtesting, we had some interesting thoughts about this kind of Justice 4 power slot of a 4/4 Aegis with upside. So our key contenders here are Zulta Convoy, Sheriff Marley, Copperhall Elite, a 4/4 for 4 in Combre with Overwhelm and Aegis, and Shelterwing Rider, a 5/5 flyer with and Aegis in Huru that loses its 5 power when it loses its Aegis. We've trending towards the former 2 here of Sheriff Marley and Zulta Convoy for a few reasons, right? It makes our influence a lot smoother, makes our primal splash much smaller, and makes our justice, going deep into justice, much easier, more relevant. Zulta also gives more interaction. So running these two also gives us more interaction in the form of Marley's Tribute, an ability to produce more bodies that wear weapons quite well. And Convoy does two things quite importantly for this deck. It gives us two bodies that wear weapons very well. These two 2/2s with Exile and Aegis for 4 power is quite powerful in our list. And it's a spell as well, which triggers Alessi, which triggers Vilgun's Disciple, and triggers Coastal Battle Mage. So that has been quite impressive. I've been enjoying that interaction. So, paying off our Horde Plunderer are 14 Spellcraft weapons. The numbers are very fluid here. The only one I'm really set on is 4 Sword of Unity because it's an insanely powerful card. Here I'm favouring higher numbers on weapons that kind of net us some kind of advantage, and going down a little bit on weapons that are repeating effects in our deck. So Vanquish's Blade, pulling double duty alongside Vanquish, and Changey Stick as kind of just like an oops I win button. So our weapons: Changey Stick, 2 power, +1/+1, flying, Spellcraft 4, play Polymorph, Linebreaker's Shield, +2/+2, Endurance, Spellcraft 3, play Shield Bash, Tome of Repetition we've looked at before, Vanquish's Blade, +2/+2, cards can't leave the enemy void, Spellcraft 3, Vanquish, and Sword of Unity, give your unit +2/+2, Lifesteal, Overwhelm, and you get to play a stand together. Yeah, so that's pretty much the deck. We've been having a lot of fun playing around with different versions of this deck, trying out going heavy into Aegis, going heavy into spells, going heavy into Acquisitive Crow, which is just one of my favourite cards in Eternal lately. The power base here is probably could be improved. I'm not great at building power bases, but this is working alright. You're not really in a hurry to hit your Primal Splash in this list, so you don't. It's not the end of the world, you're kind of waiting around for it. Anyway, that is Alessi Plunderer. Let's jump into some games and see how we go. Okay, match. Our opponent here, Kamikaze, working their way up through Diamond. This hand on the play. Yeah, why not? Let's roll the dice. Let's see how this hand fares on the play. We're going to get our turn 2 Alessi that is just going to get Lara's favoured. But you know what, we're living dangerously. We're going to crest out here, and we're going to keep their Time Sigil on top. You only need 1 Primal in this deck. You're fairly Justice heavy, but once you get past 2 you're fine. The second time is important for your Sword of Unities later on. Alright, here we're just going to jam. If opponent wants to offer the trade... No, cool. I did not think that was likely there. Usually you're not running Life Speaker to just throw away in the early game. How frisky do we want to get? I think the Battle Mage is probably the better play here. If only because if we run out Horde Plunderer now, she could very likely just get eaten by something, and that's fine. But there's no real good target for our Vanquish's Blade at 3 power from our opponent. Cool, they want to spend their entire turn doing that, that's fine by us. We're just going to attack with both here. Yes, I think it's worth attacking with both. If they were to block here, we would probably spend our Finest Hour. That would be a little bit rubbish, because then that's our entire turn. But again, they're trying to keep this Life Speaker alive.
It's all mine.
Now the best thing here would be opponent plays Untap Power into Vara. Okay, a Slay. Slay targeting Horde Plunderer is amazing. For several reasons. One, I just like amazing in a fun sense. I don't often see our opponents actually targeting Horde Plunderer with removal. currently wondering if the opponent has a harsh rule. I don't typically, we just want to play my units into a harsh rule. But, you know, we're here to have fun, so let's see what happens. Okay. Grief. Very interesting. We'll just take the 3 here. We don't hate that. Grief into Devour is nice. So, I mentioned the slaying the Horde Plunderer last turn. Typically you don't see opponents spending their targeted removal on Horde Plunderer, particularly when there's targets like Alessi and Battle Mage, which they're probably more familiar with from tiered lists. We're going to bottom this banner. And here, yeah, we're going to start jamming again. Opponent in Argenport, if they're playing any unit next turn that profitably blocks our Horde Plunderer, we can probably vanquish it. So yeah, we're going to Berserk. Interesting. Okay. You know what? Why not? We may as well start pushing our advantage here and punishing our opponent. Let's see if we can't just one-shot them. Yeah, okay. That worked better than I expected. Cool. So if they harsh rule us here, well, that's a bit disappointing. But getting them down to 6 is quite nice. There are many ways they can stabilize here, and then we would be in trouble. Lifesteal on the Merchant, not insignificant here. Okay, so Zoltar Convoy, a lot of fun in this deck as I've mentioned before, but it's also a spell for Alessi, which is just really nice. And with Aegis, it's going to really shore us up from getting wrathed here, especially when we're ahead on board and life. Is this the finest hour from our opponent? No, nothing. Okay. Hitting the Piercing Grief there is quite good timing. We're just going to take that. Let them go back to 6. We're going to go to 21. The armor you're getting from Alessi is functionally extra life in this list. Okay, there's the harsh rule I was talking about earlier. But we're still in a very good spot. In fact, with our opponent on 0 power, we just went here. Fantastic. So, Aegis is still very good, even in a post-Bara world. Okay, on the draw against Writer 411. Let's see if we can get something a little bit more interesting. That hand is fine, but waiting until turn 4 and then casting a Zoltar Convoy is a bit dull. Okay, this hand. This hand's slow, but there is definitely potential here. We start with our Crest. We're going to turn to Alessi. And hopefully we can pull into a Justice Sigil. Huh, okay. Opponent leading on a Justice themselves. I think we keep this Justice Sigil on top. I'm not sure whether the better turn 2 play is Seat into double Alessi. Okay, I think the better play here is Crest and Alessi. This lets us Alessi again on turn 3, and on turn 4 we can get double Alessi pumps by spellcrafting the secret pages. This, of course, relies on both of these Alessis surviving, but
The
you know,
first step innovation.
we're living dangerously today. End step torch. End step waiting around. There we go.
Welcome, welcome.
The first step innovation.
Okay, so next turn is looking mighty spicy. If it all goes according to plan. Opponent getting frisky with their merchant. Playing Caria.
Our wings and will are unbreakable.
Okay. That's interesting. So, Akaria needs 6 Justice Influence to get her buff. So we're not going to get smacked too hard next turn by this Akaria. Indeed, we kind of want her to get bigger so that we can vanquish her. So we're going to jam a Justice here. And what is perhaps the better play? Do we just run out the Zoltar and attack for 4, leaving 2 bodies behind? Or Spellcraft out? Getting to 5 power next turn doesn't allow us to do anything special. So I think we just play the Zoltar here. In hindsight, this secret pages from the tome is going to be fantastic when we need a primal influence, but we're not looking for that at the moment. So I think just building at our board is the way to go. And unless he agrees. Grr. One thing to keep a note from here on out from our opponent is a Millies. We're not seeing one this turn, but a Millie is very capable of running away with the game. Okay, so opponent, no attacks there. We're going to run out our seat. I think it's worth attacking with everyone here and trying to trigger Sheriff Martley's tribute, silencing an enemy unit. If we have the ability to silence this Akaria here, I think we should do so. This then allows us to hold up Vanquish for a larger unit down the track. Alright, we get the silence there. Let's go ahead and use it.
You knew it had to end like this.
So it just leaves our opponent with a 1-1, which is no issue for us, and 2 Aegis units if they wish to Wrath. And a Vanquish in hand for any giant flyer they decide to slap on down. Like a Razan, for example. So Razan eats an Alessi. That's totally reasonable. I would do exactly that as well. I wasn't particularly impressed with Razan when he was spoiled, but my gosh, has he proved himself otherwise. I was laddering this month before the Akaria nerf with Fire, Justice, Primal, Akaria.deck with Razan as well, and he proved himself incredibly powerful. So, now we're going to vanquish him, having just spoken about how powerful he is. Attack with the team. And then after combat, we're going to spend our 3 to make a 1-1 deputy. I was initially not very high on Sheriff Martley. I was running Copper Hall Elite in a lot of my different lists, in a lot of my different Combray X lists, but she's definitely impressed me. Her tribute doesn't come up all that often, but just being able to make bodies on demand has proved incredibly powerful, and I've been impressed. Okay, so the second Razan there, quite a good play from the opponent. Changey Stick needing 6 power means we'll be able to play it next turn. So we're going to play out our Crest here, and we're going to bottom this Combrei Banner. Now I think it's worth just attacking with Marley and seeing what happens. If opponent blocks, that is fine by us. We'll quite happily trade a Marley for Razan here. Excellent. This lets us play out another Marley and Deputy. This leaves us out Changey Stick to deal with whatever else our opponent plays. And a Caria here would be quite strong and might put us in the back foot quite a bit. But opponent spending their turn playing Privilege and Rank into their own share of Marley is a bit nicer. Okay. We have no way of popping the Aegis on their Marley at the moment, so we're just going to start to press our advantage. I'm going to pull more power out of our deck. And we're just going to start smashing face. I think it's important at this point in the game for us to press our advantage and rely on opponent having a blank draw or two. Caria there.
Face judgment.
Good draw. It can tangle alongside Marley with
Peace is its own reward.
Marley there to double block rather. Okay, so now we can Changey Stick, which just gives us the game. Stick here, Polymorph Caria, jam. Fantastic. So I haven't been playing Polymorph a lot either, but as a 2 to 3 of, I think it's a fine little addition to give your giant idiots a bit more reach in the very late game. Okay, one more match against Purake, no idea. This hand on the draw is certainly interesting. We're putting a lot of faith in this Awakened Students. Let's redraw it. See if we can't find something more interesting. Okay, well this is certainly more interesting, if not slower. Opponent leads on Stone Scar. There's been a really interesting just straight Stone Scar mid-range list running around that tops out at Jack Lone Gun. That might be something I play with at a later date. Jack Lone Gun is a really, really powerful and interesting card that has the kind of Grenadin's problem of being a powerful legend that only goes into one deck, or indeed a Horde Plunderer problem. You see a few of these kinds of legends in Eternal that are very fun, but they only appear in one deck, so it makes crafting them, especially if you're not swimming in Shiftstone, a bit trickier to justify to yourself, especially if you're trying to like build tier decks and rank up each month. Okay, so opponent leading on Slumbering Stone into Dark Wisp is pretty interesting here. This is very reminiscent of the old kind of Vara Infernal Tyrant, Infernal Titan lists. I'll be interesting to see what their payoff is here. We're going to play our Seed of Progress, and we're going to play Horde Plunderer. Maybe she doesn't die. That would be super duper if she did not. Because then we get to get very silly with Tome of Repetition.